I think this season there's a few different storylines which all sort of built off and have this climax revolving around shame and shame between peers and shame, being shamed or being ashamed of something you've done, and how that really affects people, both kids and grown-ups.
Sex education deals with a lot of issues in a very humorous and light-hearted way, and I think people maybe perhaps found that digestible, but also it was like about time that we start having these conversations and opening up inclusion and diversity on our screens.
Hey, MTV News, I'm Asa. We are the cast of Sex Education, and these are the top 5 things we learned on our show.
First thing I learned, I guess, just how wide the sexuality spectrum is. I think for me, it was something I learned. There was a scene in one of the later episodes whereby you see a whole bunch of different flags. And me as an actor, I was like, oh, I didn't know. I thought I knew the LGBT flag. And then there was all these other flags, and I was like, "What is that? Who is that? What is that? Who is that? And who is that? Who is that?" And I thought it was great to learn, and also great to be like, yeah, you don't know everything. Do you know what I mean? Just because you're on the shore, you're on Sex Education, doesn't mean that you're like a sex wizard. Playing Eric, it gives off the perception that like I'm an all-knowing activist on sexuality issues, and that's very much not the case. Most definitely a staunch believer of diversity and inclusion. It's a perception, I think, if you're in the public eye, or if you've played a character such as Eric, that you do, and I'm still learning, and that was really great to still learn.
The next thing I learned from Sex Education would be how important it is to be able to be yourself and be able to be like comfortable in your own skin. There are loads of different reasons that people can't do that you wouldn't think of, like off the top of your head, and people that you wouldn't expect it from. Like everyone has things that they're made to feel like isn't okay or is weird or like too different, and that's probably been the most eye-opening thing for me, and which I think I've taken from it, which is great. I think today in our like society and in this generation, there's a big problem with people seeing the shiny version of someone, especially with social media and stuff like that. Someone's life appears perfect and they might have everything and everything's so great for them and they don't have any worries or any problems or any stresses, but everyone does, like behind. No one's perfect. And I think that's like a thing that I learned playing my character this season especially.
Next thing I learned Sex Education is probably that the grown-ups, everyone's just as up as each other, whether you're a teenager or an adult. Everyone's got issues. Everyone's still figuring it out. No one knows what the answer is, and you probably never will. Life's a kind of series of questions that you'll be faced with, and you probably won't always have the answer to them. I think this show does a great job of highlighting that in every aspect of people's relationships, whether they're romantic or your family or your friends. There's always hurdles. Otis grows up a lot between season 2 and 3, and I think we really see that in his relationship with his mum. One of the first times we see them be openly kind of, to just not be at each other's necks the whole time. And we really see them support each other, and we see Otis deal with some difficult things in his family, which in season 1 he probably might have thrown a tantrum about, but now he deals with it in a much more mature, much more considerate way. I think that's one of the big things I valued coming into this season.
The next thing I learned from Sex Education is that intentionality is very essential when cultivating and creating a character. I learned that a lot from watching other cast members like Jemima, seeing the way that she was so particular about being mindful of how she interacts with us outside of set, or like while she's on set. That was something that I hadn't previously had to do as a musician, just because the intention that comes out of my music is like already there. I'm obviously like I'm intentional with like staging and other things, but it's like I don't necessarily have to think about it because it's just like me, it's inherent. I think something that I've actually taken away from the character wasn't really about like the strength or the fiery passion that they had. It was more so about the the awkwardness of being a teenager and like self-discovery and just like obviously like they're a child, so they're going through life just like trying to grasp onto like strings to create like who they are. But I think that awkwardness is something that like I've been able to tap into in the other art forms that I've had, and it made me try to reflect more on like childhood and that childlike behavior for my music as well.
The last thing that I learned from sex education is that I am really uncomfortable with shaming people. And there were a few scenes that were very hard for me to do, just because, there's always a moment when you're acting that there's really no difference between the feeling you're experiencing and the feeling you would experience if the moment was occurring in reality. And it definitely broke my heart a few times to do some of those scenes. I had to take breaks because I was very emotional doing it, but I was just kind of surprised to learn that about myself, that that would really make me uncomfortable. And the thing I probably thought of the most when doing this character is my children, because that's the thing that puts me in the responsible role and puts the most pressure on me to give them what they need rather than what they want, and all those obligations. I do feel I feel she's quite relatable for me. So it wasn't that, it's horrible to say, it wasn't that hard.